Welcome back to Gatekeeper Media's New Year's resolutions. It is January 18th, and today we're going to do something that everyone thinks of as field work. But let's be a little bit more specific about throwing distance shots. Get 3 different kinds of distance drivers, ideally something that you have multiples of so that you can school up on subsequent shots. I'm going to use a force for overstable, a nuke for pretty straight, and a crank for something that's flippy. We're going to try to work backwards from the end of the flight to where our release is. One really critical part about doing field work is keeping good mechanics. This isn't just about throwing distance, it's about optimizing the way our flight and our release are. For a distance shot to have full effect, you want it to stay on anhyzer for a really long time and only get back to hyzer or flat just at the end. Consider distance shots to be the balance of flight time versus height. The longer you can keep it in the air, the more opportunity it has to fly. But if you throw it too high, you're going to get to kind of a stalling angle. The disc is effectively a wing, and if it's not generating enough lift for its design speed and stability, it's going to end up hyzering out. Let me show you what that looks like. This is kind of intentionally too high and nose up. By the end of that flight, the disc is almost moving backwards toward us. So let's try to keep it on anhyzer the entire way. The opposite issue to stalling a disc is the thrower alert. This is when your disc is too flippy or you don't give it enough height for what its design speed is. I'll show you what that looks like too. That's a pretty good distance roller, but it's definitely not getting the maximum flight time that it could. So, like I said, I'm going to take 3 different kinds of discs of varying stabilities and try to replicate an angle with each one that is giving me as much anhyzer and glide and just back to hyzer at the end. And then, depending on how they fly, I'll try to church up on the next one a little bit. Let's start with forces. These discs are so fast and overstable that I really need to put more anhyzer on it and make sure that I'm driving the disc, not just letting it fly out there. I think there's a little more potential with some height on that. So let's try one more with a force. Yes, there's a proper distance shot. Let's try it with some nukes now. There's a little bit of a headwind, so those weren't totally consistent, but I think I hit a couple of those about as far as I can throw them. You'll notice that a lot of distance throwers, like Garrett Gurthey, Paige Pierce, Jennifer Allen, will use something that is a little bit flippy and make sure that they're giving it height and letting it glide. That's how you're getting the max distance when you're really going for that type of shot. Now I'm gonna try it with some cranks, which are definitely flippier than the first 2 sets. Whoa! Well, there's a good example of a stall shot. So certainly for me, I noticed that those cranks, when I release them on hyzer, they still want to hold that anhyzer all the way to the ground. So those are probably a little bit too flippy if I'm trying to throw a real distance shot in competition, but they might be great for a tailwind where the apparent nose speed of the disc is less. You win this drill when you can figure out how to hold your optimal mechanics while manipulating the flight of the disc, and think about it from back to forward.